Good evening. Today's daf is daf Samach Daled. We're going to begin by the Mishnah, the second line of the Amud. Kidashti es biti. Zog the Heilige Mishnah. Kidashti es biti. If a father says that I was mekadesh my daughter, and when she was a ketana, I was mekadesh her. I accepted Kiddush. Now, what is the father doing to her? That if she taka accepted Kiddushin, now she's going to be considered an Eishes Ish, and she's usher to everybody. And if he says Kidashtiya v'girashtiya, now she's going to be usher for a kohen. The father's believed, as the Gemara is going to explain, because he has a migo. You could say Mali l'Shakar. What is he gaining by this lie? She's the laktana. Right. So that's the whole word. He said Kidashti as biti. Or he said, I accepted Kiddushin and I accepted Gerushin for her. And she's still a Ketana, Vari Ketana, she's still a Ketana, and that one he's believed. Now, what if he says, Kidashtiya v'gerashtiya k'shi Ketana? He says, I was Mekadesh Kiddushin for her, and I also accepted divorce for her when she's a Ketana. But now, Vari Gedela, she's a Gedela. So by him testifying that this girl was Gerashtiya, now she's, let's say, going to be usher to, she can't marry a Kohen. So do we believe him or not? So the halacha is eini neman. And the Gemara is going to ask right away, why not? We do not believe the husband. Now, third, we don't believe, the father. Nishbis upidisio. If the father says that this girl was captive, she was a captive by goyim, upidisio, and I redeemed her, or she was redeemed. Now, the halacha is that a captive is, because we don't know if she was mezana or not, she's a suffix zena. Suffix zena is also a kain. So Allah is bein shehi ketana, bein shehi gedela. Whether she's a ketana or a gedela, Allah is eini neman. He is not believed, and she's mutter to marry a kohen. So we have three cases over here. When she's a ketana, he is believed. When she's a gedela, so if he says that I was mekadesh and megarish when she's a ketana, now she's a gedela, eini neman. And also nishbez also, and Allah is whether she, the chiddush by nishbez is whether she's a ketana or a gedela, he is never believed. So now the Gemara asks. Yeah. So Fred, the Gemara Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. What's the difference in the first case of the Mishnah? What's the difference in the later case of the Mishnah? In other words, why in the Reisha is the father credible when she's a ketana, but when she's an adult, or he testifies that she was a captive, mitamo is not believed. So the Gemara says like this: Reisha bididei. The first case is talking. Literally means Reisha bidei. Sorry, it's in his power. It's in his power to be mekadesher. So since he has the power to be mekadesher, right now, if he wants, could he be mekadesher against her will? The answer is yes. So since now he could be mekadesh this girl against her will, and he could accept the kiddushin, he has full control over her in current stage. Like Rashi says, what is he? His law, he doesn't get anything, because if he wants, he can go and be mekadesh and take the get. However, seifa la biyode. In the last case, it's not in his power. Someone cannot be mekadesh his adult daughter. So it's not permitted for him to disqualify her by handing her over, let's say, to a goy, either when she's a ketana or when she's a gdela. So basically, since he can't do that now, he can't either be mekadesh her when she's a gdela, or he doesn't have the right to go now and give her to a goy, even when she's a ketana. So he's not incredible when he says that she was taken captive. So now the Gemara is going to ask a bunch of questions.
She was captured against
No, but the question is, does he have? Correct. But does he have the power now to be yodei? Does he have the power now to go and give her to a goy when she's a ketana? He could say, the Torah tells me now that I can be mekadesher. Does the Torah now give her the right that he could do whatever he wants with her? Okay, so now that's Maskana of the Gemara. So now the Gemara is going to ask a series of questions. We see that l'cheira he does have the power in different cases. Now, so the Gemara answers like this. So now the Gemara asks, V'loi, does the father not have the power to disqualify his daughter? But if he wants, he could marry off the ketana to a chalal. What's a chalal? The chalal is the son of a kohen who married a woman. It's the son of a kohen who the father and the mother were prohibited to get married. So that child now is a chalal. So the halacha is, so if the father, if he wants, he could be masiyah to a chalal and the kapasta b'kehuna, and that will disqualify her from marrying into a kahuna. Father, therefore, should be deemed credible when he claims that he was taken in a captive. What's the difference between, let's say, the case of the captive or the case over here? You're telling me that's la biyode to be pasler. We see by the case of the chalal, he could be pasler. So Mer says no. Ole kasha is not a shaila. This is like Rabbi Desi touched up and said, Bnei Yisrael mikvah tar lachalalim, which means that the Bnei Yisrael, the daughters of the Yidden, are literally means are mikvahs to the purity of individual chalal status, which means like this: a woman who's a regular Yisraelis who marries, let's say, a chalal. Let's say a regular Yisraelis now marries a chalal. What's the status of that child? So the status of that child is it purifies that child. It renders their child fit. And so any daughter born to them.
The gam doesn't go over to the daughter. The gam doesn't go over to the daughter.
Right. So again, so Yisraelis woman marries a chalal, purifies the child. In other words, it renders the child fit, and that any daughter born to them is disqualified to marry a kohen.
No.
It's qualified. The opposite. It's qualified now to marry a kohen. So if they have a child, let's say the child is a bas. So now this bas, even though it comes from a chalal, is qualified to marry a kohen. Now, similarly, the woman herself does not become disqualified by her bia with the chalal, and she may marry a kohen if her husband dies. Now, if so, a father does not have the power to disqualify his daughter from marrying into the kohuna. Why? Again, because if let's say the chalal will die, the halacha, according to him, the halacha is that she can go ahead and marry a kohuna. Okay, so now the Gemara challenges weiter. But he has the power to marry her off to a mamzer, which is disqualifying her from marrying a kohen.
And the children.
Exactly. So my answer is Rabbi Akiva. This is like Rabbi Akiva who says, Rabbi Akiva is a das yachid who says, Ein Kidushin Tefsin b'chai v'lavin. Most of the time hold that the only time Kidushin is Tefis is not Tefis. Kidushin is not Tefis, is only by Kodesh. By Lavin, Kidushin is Tefsin. Rabbi Akiva l'shitase is Ein Kidushin Tefsin b'chai v'lavin. So Kidushin does not take effect even with those women with whom one is chayav for violating a lav or of engaging, let's say, relationships. So therefore, according to him, the Kidushin does not take effect with a mamzer. A mamzer is a chayav lav. Cannot accomplish that. Why? Because according to him, in Kidushin Tefsin b'chai v'lavin. So now the Gemara further challenges, but the father has the power to marry her off as a widow to a kohen gadol. According to him, he learns out that he renders his children halal by means of the relationship, but he does not render them mamzerim. So since this act of bia does not produce mamzerim, Rabbi Akiva agrees that Kidushin is effective in that case. So my answer is Rabbi Yishavav. This is like, in accordance with Rabbi Yishavav, the Amar Bayu v'nitzvach Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef. Let us shout out that Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef, he would say, Kol she'en le'bia b'Yisrael avad mamzer. According to him, he said every case, in every case where a Yid does not have relations with does not engage in relations with a particular woman, and he does so, the vlad is a mamzer. So, according to this, according to Rabbi Akiva, basically, all acts basically, according to Rabbi Akiva, is very extreme, but all acts of basically bia make the person a mamzer. So Kidushin is of no effect in the case of any isser, including an amar l'kohen gadol, which the father, why? Because it's an isser lav. So we see that the father cannot disqualify his daughter from kohuna, because according to him, the vlad will be a mamzer. So my answer is honich let it be shavav either time of the nafshei shaper. The Mishnah can work well according to the opinion of Rabbi Shavav, as he states a reasoning of his own. In other words, he states an independent statement, which is very critical of Rabbi Akiva's ruling that the child is a mamzer. So then the Mishnah works out very well, because it applies to this relation. But if it comes to exclude the reasoning of Rabbi Simi, in other words, either he means to take issue with the ruling of Rabbi Akiva in the specific case mentioned by Rabbi Simi, that a almana to a kohen gadol. So then Yishav also agrees that according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, Kidushin does take effect in a case where there's only over an asay. So according to him, so again, so the din is that the father has the power to marry her to those with whom bia renders them chayiv for only being over an asay. As Rabbi Akiva's principle does not include this kind, which is amal l'kohen gadol. So the Gemara said, now, Amar Rabashi, so Rabashi says, "V'tizbero reishim mishum d'biyadei." Who can you understand it that way? Can it be that the reasoning of the halach in the first case is because it's in his power? He to be under the kadshe. Okay, he has the power to be mekadosh. Be under the garsha. Does the Torah give him the right once he accepts Kidushin now to go and just divorce her? Wait, another question. Let's say if this one said, in other words, let's say the husband says that it's not satisfactory for him to be mekadosh her, and her father's mekadosh him against his will. Father cannot be mekadosh the daughter to whomever he chooses without taking the man's wishes into account. So how do you go ahead and the guy wants to be mekadosh, wasn't mekadosh, the father accepted it? No, I'm taking it back now, Gershon. It doesn't work that way. So he says, Rabashi says like this. The first case of the Mishnah is the reasoning is that the Torah believes him. From what do we know that the father is deemed credible to render his daughter forbidden as a ish by Torah or by yeah? The ish teaches me that she's forbidden to all men. Hazeh, when the Torah says hazeh, means hitira, that rendered her permitted to this specific man, her husband. And Rashi explains, Hazeh, Minisuin hemena rachman la'av, Torah deemed the father credible with regards to marriage, whereas he is not deemed him credible with regards to a captive. The Torah did not grant the father any special credibility with regards to the claim that his daughter was taken as a shvuya. Only Kidushin is a special.
So, speaking as such to the ish, it goes on the father that he has the right
to be Mekadesh's daughter.
Hazeh means that she's married and she has the right to be married to this person.
Right.
And not Gershon.
Right. Torah gave a special.
Even though she's a ketana, the father cannot accept Gershon.
Gershon, only Kiddushin. Yeah. Okay. Zog the next Mishnah. The Mishnah says Zog Tazei. Mishamar b'shas misasa yishli banim. If a person says at the time of his death, "I have children," now, in which case his wife does not require. If let's say he has a brother, they have children. His wife does not require yibum marriage after his death. So Allah is Naaman. He's believed. So if he says yeshli banim, he's believed. I guess we don't believe the woman. Yeshli achem, but if he said, let's say on his deathbed,
What's the reference to
we
why?
don't. The shaila is if they don't have children, so now there's a mitzvah for the next brother to do.
Right.
Now let's say he doesn't want the next brother to marry her. He knows he's on his deathbed. He knows that he's going to collude. And he's going to make up a story and say, I have children with her. So do we believe him or not? Maybe he doesn't want his brother to marry his wife. So the halacha is yesh lebanim neman, yesh li achim. If he says I have brothers, indicating that it's usher for her to marry anyone else until one of his brothers perform chalitza with her after his death. Right. So now, if he says yesh lebanim, so he's basically restricting his wife that she has to do yibum or chalitza. No. I'm sorry. Yesh li achim. Yesh li achim.
He tried to.
Now force, yeah.
Right.
So the halacha is, if he says Yeshli Achim, any number he's not believed. Okay, so now, apparently one can learn from the Mishnah that the husband is deemed credible to render his wife permitted, right? So in the first case, if he says Yeshli Banim, I have sons, so now he's being mad to his wife that she's but he's not deemed credible to render her forbidden. So mastis like Reb Nosson. Shall we say that the Mishnah is not like Reb Nosson? Now, what's Reb Nosson saying? The Tanya we learned in our Brayse b'shas Kidushin Amar Yesh Banim. If someone said at the time of Kidushin that he has children, b'shas misa Amar Ein Banim. So if a person says at the time of his Kidushin, again, someone said at the time of his Kidushin that he has children, but at the time of his death he said that he does not have any children. So b'shas Kiddushin, Omar ein lo achim, or at the time of Kiddushin he says, I have no brothers. So b'shas misa Omar yesh lo achim, nema lahatim and nema la'aser. Divrei Rebbe, Rasan Omar af nema la'aser. So Rasan holds that he's deemed credible even to render her forbidden. Okay, so Amar Rava. So the question is, we see from our Mishnah that it's not like Rasan. So Amar Rava says, Shani Hasam. There in the Brayse it's different. Why? Kivan the b'shas misa kahadar bay, since at the time of his death he retracted his initial statement. Again, Kivan the B'shas Misa, since at the time of death, Kahadar Bey, he retracted, so Emakushta Kamar.
Saying the truth.
Therefore, we could say that he's likely that he spoke the truth. So again, Shani Yosef Kivan the B'shas Misa, Kahadar Bey, Emakushta Kamar. So Amalei Abai said to him, "Well, I've called the Chen who." And isn't it all the more so that he should be deemed credible in this case? He explains, Hashta Uma Hosam, the Kamara Leila Dibura, Amrit Kushta Kamar. Now, consider, if there, where he weakens his previous statement, as now he says the opposite of his earlier claim, nevertheless, you say that he spoke the truth. So Masnisan, in the case of our Mishnah, the Loi Kamara Leila Diburi, he does not weaken his earlier statement, as he had issued no prior claim about having or lacking children or brothers. He never said before, I have and now I don't have. So if that works, he's loymar and he should be deemed credible. So therefore, Abai says, the Mishnah is talking about a case where we do not have a chazaka with regards to brothers of his, and likewise we don't have a chazaka with regards to his children. In other words, the Beis Din has no prior knowledge as to whether the dying man has brothers or children. So we say, so since there's no chazaka that he has sons or a brother, Amar, when he says, Yeshli banim neman, he's believed because there's no chazaka before. Yeshli achim eni neman. Now, when he says Yeshli, why is he not believed? Because lav kol kiminei da'asli akula alma. Why? Because it's not in his power to render her forbidden to everyone. Now, so that's not Brisa. By contrast, the Brisa is referring to a case. The muchsak lon, samagdalam and beis. The muchsak lon ba'achi v'le muchsak lon v'bonei. Talking about that he has a chazaka that he has brothers, but he does not have a chazaka. Where we have a chazaka that he has brothers, but we do not have a chazaka that he has children. Although no full-fledged edus has been submitted in either claim. As we say. In that case, we say this sort of why would I lie? In other words, if he were lying, he would have stated a more credible claim or performed an action achieving the desired results. Then where it explains, Maika Omar, for what reason is he saying that he has children or that he has no brothers? The miftadimi of him to exempt her from yibum. Matsuyamar, he could say patarna lebegita. He could say that I exempt him by giving a get. So it can be assumed that he's telling the truth when he has no. When he.
She would have to get.
Well, let's say he would have given, but at the time of on his deathbed, he could say.
The get was given to her.
No, but what is he saying? Shaila is, does he have a migo? What if he wants to give a get now? If he wants, if he says, if I was lying, I could have just went ahead and said.
I want to make her available to the world. I just give her a get.
Correct. Exactly.
Now.
Yeah. Okay. Zog the next Mishnah. We're holding Samagdal and Beis by the next Mishnah Mekadesh. Zog the Mishnah Mekadesh is B'tei Stam. In the case of a person who's Mekadesh's daughter to a man without specification. In other words, without specifying which daughter he meant. He's Mekadesh's daughter, Stam, without specifying which daughter he meant. Ein habegus b'chlal. So the grown women are not included amongst those who might be Mekudeshes, because he doesn't have the right to be Mekadesh, a woman who is a begress. Now, and we have this already, this Gemara, we have this in the Nuns. Where is it? Yes, Amachalaf. Okay. She says like this. Person who has two groups of daughters. A person has two groups of daughters from two women. One group of daughters from each wife. Now, V'amar says, Kidashti es biti agdelia, I was Mekadesh my biti gdelia, and idea, im gdelia shebegdelia, so gdelia shebekanis. Aktana shebegadlos, she gdelia men gdelia shebekatnos. Now, so what happened? A person who has two groups of daughters, right? He has one group of daughters from each wife. And he said, I was Mekadesh my elder daughter to someone, but I don't know if I meant the eldest.
Second wife, and she's the older or younger?
Yeah, so the eldest of the older group of daughters, or the eldest of the younger group of daughters, or the youngest of the older group, who was nevertheless older than the eldest of the younger group. Okay, so what's the din? 1 second. Kulan Asuras, they're all Asur, Chutz min Aktana, Shebaktanis, except the youngest of the youngest, they were Meir. Basi says no. Kulan Mutaris, they're all Mutar, Chutz min Akdelis, Shebakdelis, except of the eldest of the group, as one who says elder without Further specification means the oldest of all of them. Now, similarly, the Mishnah says, if a person says, I was Mekadosh, my younger daughter, but I don't know if I meant the youngest of the youngest group or the youngest of the older group, or he said the eldest of the younger group who is younger than the youngest of the older group. So the Allah is kul nasuris, they're all asr chutz min hakdelis shebekdelis, except for the eldest of the older group. These are the mayor. Basi says no. Kulam mutaris chutz min haktanis shebektanis, they are all permitted except for the youngest of the youngest group. Now, the Gemara asks from the halachas of the Mishnah that one who's mekadesh his daughter without further specifying certainly was not mekadesh an adult daughter, right? That's the Begris. So you can learn from her haktanis bechlal. So you can learn from here that minors are included in the suffix if he had more than one. So shamas mina, what can we learn from our Mishnah? Kidushin shem misur in the bia. We had a whole machlekes, right? If you remember, Kidushin misur in the bia or not. We see from our Mishnah that Kidushin shem misur in the bia is having Kidushin, where the husband may not consummate the marriage. In this case, because each of the women might not be his wife, but his wife's sister. So the halacha is nevertheless the Kidushin is Kidushin, and that's why you need to have the Kidushin is a good condition. Kidushin, to the extent that each woman requires a get to make her to be mater her to someone else. Now, what's the problem with this? This contradicts the opinion of Rava that Kidushin shem misur in the bia leish make Kidushin. So my answer is halcha ma'askinan kishein sham ela gedela uktana, which we had this already. And with the case, 2 daughters, an adult and a minor woman. But the Mishnah says grown woman, plural. The Gemara says my begris. What does it mean, grown woman? The Mishnah is not referring to a father who has more than one adult woman, but begris the Alma, talking about grown woman in general. In other words, whenever men mekadosh one of their daughters, the Kiddushin, the daughters who are begris are not under this consideration. So the obviously, begris ma'aviditayu. What are grown women doing in this context? How can it be suggested that the father could be mekadosh a woman whose daughter who's a begris? My answer is no. We're talking about a case as the shavisa shliach. We're dealing with a case where the adult daughter appointed her father as a shliach to accept the Kiddushin, and he proceeds to mekadosh one of his daughters without specifying which one. So ma'od the tema, I would think, since you would say that with regard to this situation, when he accepts the Kiddushin, he accepts it with his adult daughter in mind. Why? Because he made her a shliach. It makes a lot of sense. Therefore, the Mishnah teaches us, it teaches us that a person does not put aside a matter for which he derives benefit. In other words, the Kiddushin of his minor daughter, where he keeps the money and performs a matter for which he does not derive benefit. The Kiddushin of his adult daughter, where she keeps the money. So the Gemara says, 1 second, we're not dealing with a case where the daughter says to him, as a reward for your shlichus, my Kiddushin money shall belong to you. The Gemara says, a person does not put aside a mitzvah that is imposed upon him, the Kiddushin of his minor daughter, to perform a mitzvah that is not directly imposed upon him, the Kiddushin of adult daughter. Since she's of age, her Kiddushin is her own responsibility. Okay, the Mishnah taught Mishi Eshloi. Second, just lost the place. Okay, Mishi Eshloi Shnei Kitei Bonis. The Mishnah says a person who has 2 groups of daughters and was mekadosh the older of them, but is unsure which one he meant. So the mayor and Rabbi S have machlekes. Mishnah adds the same machlekes applies if the Kiddushin, if he was mekadosh his younger daughter as well. So the Gemara says, Utsricha. And it's necessary to teach both cases. If it only tell me the first case, so I would say, in that case, a person might have claimed that a mayor says that they're all usher except for the youngest daughter of the younger group. The reason is that since there's one younger than her, he calls any daughter who's not the youngest elder. But in the case of one who's Makadish's younger daughter, maybe he agrees to Rabbi Yossi that a father calls only the one who is the youngest of all younger, as a father prefers to call his daughters elder whenever possible. And if the halacha was stated with regard to the case that of a younger daughter who might have said that so a person could say that Rabbi Yossi says his opinion in the case of the above reasons. But in the case of the elder daughter, And maybe he agrees to the mayor. So the mayor asks a question with regard to this opinion. The memra of the mayor, Savar, is this to say that a mayor holds that maches inish nafshe l'sveika, a person places himself in a situation of suffix? In other words, people issue statements and accept upon themselves ischayvos that are not clearly defined. And Rabbi S maintains that a person does not place himself in suffix as one who has, so the we learned the opposite. Tanya we learned haneder, a person who takes a vow that wine is usher to him until Pesach. So the halacha is usher ad sheyagia. It's forbidden to him until Pesach arrives. Ad sheyehei Pesach, but if he says until it will be Pesach, usher ad sheyetze, it's usher until the end of Pesach. The Mishnah continues, ad pnei mizbeach, pnei Pesach. If he says until before Pesach, Rameir also Achiyagia. Rameir says it's also for him until Pesach arrives, and Rabbi Eimer Achiyetze until it ends. Now, what do we see from here? That Rameir holds that one does not put himself in a situation of suffix, as despite his mention of the presence of Pesach, which might be referring to any of the days of Pesach, he doesn't mean one of the days of Pesach itself, but until it arrives. Whereas Rabbi Yossi holds that his words apply to each of the days of Pesach due to the suffix. This is the opposite of what we said concerning a man who was Mekadesh's daughter. So Amar Rav Chanina bar Rav Dima Amar Rav Mechlefes Hashita. Change the shita. Change the opinions. Change the names. Well, Tanya and was taught in a brisa. Zaklal. This is the general rule. Kol shezmani kavua. Any shvur that has a fixed time applies to a set date. And he says ad pnei. He says until before that date. So the mayor Eimer ad pnei the mayor ad shiatza. It has to be until the date ends. And the Rabbi holds ad shiagia until it arrives. So what do we see? We see the opinion of this brisa is according to the way we amended it. Abaya says machlekes b'shtei kitei bones. The machlekes between a mayor and a Rabbi applies to two groups of girls. As a,
young and old.
right, Rameir maintains that all of them can be called elder except the youngest of the youngest daughter. Ava bekas achas, but with regards to one group, if all the daughters share the same mother, they v'hakol gdei mamish. So everyone agrees that when the father says elder, he means the actual eldest one. Tana mamish, amsiyosef mishma karli. And the middle daughter, she's called neither elder nor daughter. She's called the middle. You have the older, right? What do you call it? The older, you have the sandwich and the one in the middle. Okay. So he asked them like this. What? I'm going to ask you a question over here. Daf Samachei Omid Aleph. With regards to a person who says, I'm Mekadesh, my elder daughter, the middle daughter of the youngest group should be permitted, as he would have called her by name rather than referring to her as the elder one. So my answer is, we're talking about a case that there are only two daughters, right? An adult woman and a younger woman, but there's no middle daughter. Two, it also makes sense. Why? If there's a middle daughter, let the Mishnah teach the Allah with direct reference to her. And the Mishnah should have said, and I do not know if it was the middle of the youngest daughter, or the fact that the Mishnah does not refer to this daughter is mashma that there are only two women in each group. And where it says, but according to your reasoning, according to your reasoning, the middle one of the first group, it's for sure uncertain and it's forbidden to the husband. And yet does the Mishnah teach this halacha with direct reference to her? So where it says, how could you compare the two cases? There it taught its halacha with regards with a direct reference to a daughter who is younger than the middle daughter of the older group. And that daughter is mentioned L'Isura as a Isser. As the Mishnah says that the suffix applies even to the youngest of the older daughters. And the same is true of this middle daughter who's older than the youngest of the group. In other words, it's evident that the same suffix applies to her, and therefore there's no reason to mention the middle daughter of the older group. So, hacha, here, with regard to the younger group, if there is a suffix with regards to the middle daughter, and she's aser, nisne, the Mishnah should teach the halach with directs to her. The fact that it doesn't must be there's no middle daughter. But in regards to the case of Pesach, the chikas achas dami, which is comparable to one group of daughters, as all the days of Pesach are one single group, upligi, and yet Rameir and Rabbi S disagree with regards to this. So this apparently contradicts Abaye's opinion that everyone agrees in the case of a single group. So Amalei Rava says to him, they disagree with regards to the general language. In other words, the machlekes in that case does not concern the basic issue of whether or not a person places himself of suffolk or not. Rather, they disagree over the way people speak. Mar savar at pnei hamizbeach at kamo pischei. It basically holds that when you use the expression until before Pesach means until just before Pesach. Mar savar ad mipnei pischa. The mayor holds that it means until Pesach passes and ends. Okay, tomorrow.